This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and we're back with another episode. 2 in a week. I'm spoiling you at the moment. Seriously though, thank you for all the feedback on the recent recordings, especially the most recent one, where we spoke with Mike Curtis as we looked back on Euro 2004 in our England at the European Championship series. It's still available in all the usual places, and once again thanks to Mike for his time. Now, like many, I've been watching ITV's coverage of Euro 96. England have got past both Scotland and Holland. That second half of the Scotland game, I think, is when that tournament turned for us. Spain up next in the quarter-finals. Knockout time. And the last time we played knockout football was the semi-final of the 1990 World Cup against Germany. Let's hope we avoid them this time. Makes the mind boggle going all back in time. Speaking of which, why not go and have a look at Steve Hopper? He's been on the podcast before. Steve Hopper on Twitter and on Instagram is doing his very own Back in Time for England, and he's got Muggins here in with him as well. All good fun. He's doing his part trying to raise awareness for Mental Health Awareness Week. It's at Steve Hopper TV, as I say, on Twitter and Instagram. Anyway, on to this episode. Obviously with no games to talk of, unless the Korean or Bundesliga floats your boat, which behind closed doors just doesn't really do it for me. Now, I recently had a chat with an England fan, and without trying to be too cliquey, as I realise many of you will not be Travel Club members, but the England Supporters Travel Club have been running a regular England quiz, which has been well received and I must say, well run. Thanks to all those who are compiling it and putting it out. Quickly has become a highlight of my week. Anyhow, there was one particular contestant that won it week in, week out. Although just like the commentator's curse, the week after we spoke, he was beaten. But I've managed to track him down as I thought if he had that much knowledge, he must have a few stories to tell. I'd like to welcome to the Three Lions podcast, a name you may recognise, fellow England supporters. Howard Taylor, or as I like to refer to him, it's blooming Howard Taylor again. He is a regular England Supporters Travel Club quiz winner. Howard, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Russell. How are you?
All very well, thank you. Yeah, as I say, you are you're a regular on the England scene, but you are a regular winner on a particular quiz that the England Supporters Club have been putting out, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough. They've done 5 actually. I didn't do the first one. I didn't know anything about it, and I saw it advertised. So I did the second one. I was lucky enough to win it, and I nearly didn't do the second one. The third one, the second one I was supposed to be doing because I was supposed to be playing darts at 5 o'clock. But I managed to convince my opponent to put it back so I could have another go, which was quite good because I won that one as well.
You playing darts in these times?
Yeah, I've got a dartboard at home. I play sort of reasonable standard darts, and a few of my friends play. So we've just organised a bit of a competition between us, just something to do.
And that's what, put a camera up and you play each other like that, is it?
Yeah, we have it on house party. Someone else to chalk, and then obviously you just call out your scores, but you can the checker's checking them anyway. And just play 5 legs and in a league and promotion and relegation. Take it quite seriously, really. So it's a bit of a giggle anyway.
Why not? Why not? Well, I mean, yeah, as I say, you're a regular winner. You're up there in the free figures generally, 100 odd points, whereas I'm milling around mid-table with around 50 to 60 points. Where did all this England knowledge come from?
I go away with a very large group of friends, and one of the things we always do when we go away is we do quizzes with each other. And, sometimes I'll be the person asking the questions, other times it'll be somebody else, but you just pick up stuff. And I think because I go to all the games, you have a bit more of a memory of it if you're actually there, I think sometimes.
That's true.
That's probably why.
I mean, probably the only quizzes that I do on an away game are the ones in the Three Lions.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah. Good old Phil. Scouse Phil, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. I mean, do you generally get 10 out of 10 on those?
We don't. I don't know. We're doing them on my own. We normally get hold of it all round a table, having a few beers, and we just shout out the answers. So we don't really do it individually, but between us, we generally get most of them, if not all of them.
Yeah. Well, I take my hat off to you. I'll come and find your table on an away game and sit in as well and chip in my answers.
You'd be more than welcome, Russell.
But I mean, the supporters club. I mean, again, hats off to them. They even got the gaffer in, didn't they? Gareth Southgate came in, and you joined in on that one and beat him.
I was very lucky because only the one that I nearly didn't go in for, the one where I was supposed to be playing darts, as a result of winning that, I got an email from one of the representatives of the FA inviting me to play in a quiz, but they didn't. They just said it would be with a special guest. They didn't tell me who the guest was going to be. And I like quizzes, so I said, yeah, put me down. And then quite soon after that, I realised Gareth Southgate was going to be on the quiz, which I thought would be a great opportunity, being a Palace fan myself. And obviously he came through the youth at Palace. Luckily enough, I didn't do too bad on that either, so it was good.
Well, you won it, didn't you?
Yeah, I was lucky, really. I got a few stupid ones wrong that it's really, being filmed and, being nervous, and all my mates knew I was on it. And so I did feel under pressure, and I did get a couple wrong I really shouldn't have got wrong. Like the round at the end, it was edited, so you didn't really see the tension of it. But basically, we had a minute to name the 10 countries we'd only ever played once in a international. And the minute went so quick, I only had time to write 8 answers down. And 4 of the ones I missed were games I'd actually been to. There was Honduras I went to in Miami, Panama, obviously in Russia, Ghana at Wembley, and what was the other one? There's another one as well that I'd been to and forgotten that we'd only played them once. So it does put you under pressure. Luckily, the mastermind champion who was winning the quiz until then, I guess they're really good at sort of being able to learn information, and that sort of thing is. I don't think you could probably learn that. I don't think it'd be any book. It would just be trying to work it out for yourself. Yeah. So I managed to get to a tie break, and when I was revising for the quiz against Gareth, because obviously I didn't want to make myself look a complete idiot. And one of the things I discovered while revising was that Neil Webb was the 1,000th player to ever play for England. So when the question came up, when was Gerry Francis, when did he first play for England? I already knew a sort of time frame, because if Webb was the 1,000th, he was before that, but not significantly before.
Yes,
so I managed to put a decent guess in for that. So. Yeah,
because that's right. The tiebreaker was what number was Gerry Francis in the sort of the new player. What do they call the player numbers?
They call them legacy. Legacy. I've never heard it called that before, and I had to actually ask them what they meant with the question, which made me look a bit of an idiot.
No, I think they brought that out. I think it was shortly before the 1,000th game against Montenegro at home. I think that was around when they done that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, according to Rachel who did the quiz, there's been 1,260 people, I think, that have played for England. She needed to know when Gerry Francis was. So we had, obviously knew the maximum was 1,260.
Yeah. And what was his number again?
It was 900. I went 867 because what they actually said, and you didn't hear on that, is if you went over, it didn't count. So I was careful. I didn't want to go too high and be disqualified immediately. So I went a little bit lower than I thought it was. But I still got within 30, which isn't too bad, I suppose, out of 1,200.
Yeah, excellent. And what was Gareth like?
It was really good because we got to have a little chat with him before the cameras started rolling, and again at the end. Some of the stuff wasn't used, I guess the time limitations. But yeah, he was like the answers he gave. I thought, because I've seen the recording of it, he comes across really well because he doesn't just say an answer. He sort of elaborates on stuff. He wasn't trying to just get rid of us. He was quite good in that way, I thought.
Yeah, no, I watched it and he came across really well, sort of elaborating on his answers and just gave that real personal side that we know he's got, isn't he?
I think he was very careful not to say anything that was to do with club rather than country. Because my question I asked him was, there's a real connectivity at the moment between himself and the players and the fans. And I wondered if he had been a fan himself. And I was hoping he was going to say, yeah, when I grew up, I used to go down Sellers Park. But he said about his experiences watching England when he was a kid, but he didn't mention any club teams. So I think he's quite diplomatic in that way. He didn't want to alienate any Brighton fans, for instance, or Millwall fans. If he was appearing to show some favouritism towards a team like Palace, for instance.
Yeah. Well, he's not the first England manager you've come into contact with either, is he?
Yeah, no, I've been very lucky, really. I've seen 3 others in person.
Okay.
Which was quite neat. One of them, I know Glyn's been on here before, and he was with me when we met Graham Taylor in Ukraine. Glyn did a blog for BBC Radio Europe, and as a result of that, we were invited to meet up with Nicky Campbell on a Radio 5 live show on a couple of occasions. And on one of those occasions, Graham Taylor was there himself, and he was brilliant. He was such a gent. He was really good fun to talk to. So we had a bit of time chatting to him.
Yeah, I've met Graham Taylor before. Again, that was in Ukraine. He was doing he was just part of a England supporters event that was put on, and we had he was available for like a chat and a photo, and yeah, he's a really nice guy when I met him. Yeah, I
mean, all of the players that ever played for him, he was very, very popular, a bit like Bobby Robson in that respect, I think. And, perhaps the England fans at the time didn't appreciate what a lovely guy he was. Obviously, he didn't get a massive amount of success, I guess, and ultimately that's what you're going to be judged on. But yeah, Graham, and we bumped into him again at one of the flights that we took as well while we were in Ukraine, and he came straight over to us, remembering us from the Radio 5 Live gig, which was good. So it's quite neat to see Graham Taylor walk over to your group of people. So
yeah, no, fair play. No, it's nice when you get that sort of feeling that they are human, aren't they? They're not sort of giving an impression that they're above you.
No, exactly. They're human beings the same as us, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they all love football the same as we do.
Yeah. So that's so Gareth Southgate, Graham Taylor. Who else?
Yeah, Fabio Capello. Just after the World Cup in 2010 in South Africa, he hosted a charity golf event at La Quinta Golf Course in Spain in aid of the Sebi Ballesteros Foundation. Myself and my friend have got a place on La Quinta, so we got an invite to go. He doesn't play golf, I do, so I went. Yeah, he was quite an interesting chap. He ended up on the table next to us for the gala dinner in the evening. And,
nice.
Somebody that was sat next to him made the mistake of going to the toilet or the bar, and with a spare seat next to the current England manager, I couldn't resist the temptation to sidle over there with my son and say, "Oh, remember me from earlier?" Because I had introduced myself to him at the tea, and I said, "Oh, any chance for a chat for a few minutes?" And I sat next to him for half an hour, and his English was a lot better than come across. When he was doing press releases and stuff like that, he had no problem understanding me. I had no problem understanding him. Things that he was saying that, but for a bit of luck, England could have gone a lot further. Spain could have gone out on penalties and ended up winning it. But for the Lampard disallowed goal, who knows how far we'd have gone. Yeah. He was very passionate. That was one of the things that come across when I was speaking to him. And the other England manager I met was again at a golf day. Not you think I play a lot of golf, really? I don't. I met Kevin Keegan at a charity golf day at Staverton 2 years ago.
Okay,
that was quite funny actually, because I went up. I had a picture taken with him at the tee. The practice ground rather, and I said that I was there for the last England game that he managed at Wembley when we lost 1-0 to the Germans, and he said David Seaman was a hell of a keeper, but he could have done a little bit better with that shot, I thought, and he said he left the England job because he didn't think he could take him any further. I reminded him at the time that for some years after that we didn't get much further with or without him anyway. We then there was a photo shoot opportunity, and it was a Bentley convertible. And as luck would have it, he ended up standing next to me for the photo shoot. And I looked at the Bentley and I said to him, "Oh, do you think that's the hole-in-one prize?" Obviously it wasn't. It was just something they were doing. And he laughed. And I said, "Oh, by the way, have you ever had one?" He said, "I've got one at the moment, but it's not a convertible. It's just a normal Bentley." I went, No, not a Bentley. Have you ever had a hole-in-one?" He said, "Yeah, actually, I've had 3. I said, "I don't like you very much. You've had 3 hole-in-ones and you own a Bentley." So that made him laugh. But yeah, he was really good fun as well.
Because I've heard that maybe, or because he released a book a little while back, but I heard that he didn't really like to talk about England so much with people, but he was fine with you.
Absolutely fine, yeah, absolutely fine. He was talking about the Premier League and saying that the amount of foreign players and foreign managers make it more difficult for us as a national team, which is something that's a belief I've held for a long time myself. But I mean, back in when the Premier League began, the 5th best goalkeeper in the Premier League would have been English, and there was 4 better than him we could have chosen from. Nowadays, it's slim pickings for the manager, and not only that, when a position, I'm not saying anything negative against Gareth, obviously, but at the time when he got the job, there wasn't a lot of people, I don't think, that thought it was a very good appointment. He's managed to prove them all wrong, luckily. If we had all of the top teams had English coaches, when the England position comes about, there will be much more viable people available for the job than has been in the past.
Yeah, I agree. The realm of England managers that you've met there, but how did following England all come about for yourself?
Well, I've been to a couple of England Wembley games as a kid growing up, but I had a family, I was married, 3 children. I went to the England game I talked about earlier with Keegan's last game with my then wife. But shortly afterwards, we were going through a divorce, and I made my mind up that I was going to go to the away game. No matter what it was going to cost me, I was going to go. Obviously, I didn't have the shackles of a wife telling me I couldn't. I wasn't a member of the England Supporters Club at the time. I managed to get a ticket with 2 friends from a tout in London. 2 of us ended up on the halfway line with all the journalists. It was a brilliant view. The other one was in the German end. We sort of pulled straws, and he was the unlucky one.
So this to just let everyone know, this was the 5-1, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it was. And when we first got there, me and my mate Westy, we sort of looked around and there was just loads of Germans everywhere. So I said, we've got 2 choices here. We either pretend we're German or we announce we're English. So I found the biggest guy in the area. I got up and I said, "Hi, I'm English. Nice to meet you." Put my hand out, shook his hand, and just stood up through the national anthem. Obviously, when they scored, Kirsten Yanker, I think, scored.
Yes.
That game. So they were all jumping about, and I'm like, "Oh God, head in hand." Sorry, thinking it's been here before, sort of thing. But by the end of it, everyone around myself and Westy all come up, shook my hand, said England were the better team, we deserved to win. I remember thinking at the time, had that been the other way around at Wembley and it was a German in the England end, I'm not sure they'd have been treated quite so well. But the Germans treated us very well after the game. They were very, very magnanimous in defeat.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the Germans all dispersed quite quickly, or even before the final whistle had gone.
Yeah, I took pictures of the scoreboard from 2-1, 3-1, 4-1 and 5-1, and you could see there was less people in every single picture. I think where I was, it was a load of journalists, and they were really like the posh seats. So I think they were probably not your hardcore, sort of ultras. So that was probably why it saved my bacon.
Yeah. So how much did you pay for a tout for a ticket for that game?
Trying to think. I think it was £200, and that was obviously back in 2001, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So a lot of money then. We stayed in Germany for a few days, went up a mountain and a few other things, so we made the most of it. Got back from Germany and immediately signed up for the England Supporters Club. I became a member the week after the 5-1 Germany game.
Nice one. From what I remember, you said to one of your opening lines, as it were, when you spoke with Gareth on the quiz, that you'd only missed 1 away game in that time since.
Well, 2007, we played Estonia away, and unfortunately, I didn't have enough caps to get a ticket, so I missed that one. But from that point onwards, there's only been 2 occasions when England have played abroad, and I haven't been there. One was the behind the closed doors game that no one could go to, so I don't really count that one. Yeah. And the other one I missed was the first game in the World Cup against Tunisia. And that was, I was out there for the rest of the tournament. I had tickets for the final. I was there for the semis. I stayed we stayed quite a lot of the times in Sopot, actually, in Poland, because it was quite close to Kaliningrad. But me and a group of friends stayed out the whole time. But with the Tunisia game, logistically, it was a complete nightmare. I either had to have 3 nights overnight in a train to get to the next venue, or fly back to England and fly out again, and that was £1,500. And neither of those felt that appealing. So I thought, you know what, I'll miss the first game, I'll just stay out there for the rest of it. But it did kind of ruin a very good run I had at the time, but it was one of those things.
Yeah, one of those things. Now, go on, tell us some of your highlights following England. Must be plenty, because I know, you mentioned Glyn Davies, who's been on the podcast previously. He wrote his excellent book, which your name checked in a few of his adventures. I'll go on to expand on some of those adventures.
Well, there's some that we can't really talk about, and I think it's some maybe are going to be in he's doing another book, so I don't want to ruin his thunder. One of my favourite little bits of a trip, actually, it was when 2014 Brazil. I decided I was going to go on a family holiday in Florida with my family, my daughter, my son, and my daughter's friend, and a friend Chris Marsh, who's also goes everywhere with England. And we caught the two warm-up games in Miami, Honduras and Ecuador. We'd made this plan, or I made a plan, he joined up with me, that we kept going south. So we went Orlando, Miami, then we went to Caracas in Venezuela, took a flight to Cayman National Park, did Angel Falls, the highest waterfall in the world. We then got a taxi right across Venezuela into Brazil, because over there, if no one's ever been to Venezuela, and it's not really suggested a good place to go because it's quite violent, but it's actually cheaper to buy fuel than it is to buy water.
Really?
Yeah, when we were quite close to the Brazilian border, and there was a petrol station for Venezuela side, and there was a queue of traffic like I've never seen before in my life. And the taxi driver explained that the Brazilians cross the border, queue up, and fill up their car with petrol, and then turn around and go back again. It takes them virtually all day, but the fuel price is a fraction of what it is in Brazil. We got our Venezuelan taxi driver to get us to the border, cross the border by foot, and found a little roadside cafe. And it was just before the first game of the World Cup, which was Brazil against Croatia. And we'd organised a taxi to take us from there to Boa Vista, which was where we had a night planned before flying on to Manaus. The taxi driver refused to go until the game had finished, which was fine by us because we thought it was quite cool. Us two sat there with all the Brazilians, no tourists anywhere to be seen, on a roadside cafe watching Brazil play Croatia. So
amazing.
That was quite neat. So whereas most of the England fans, I think, flew to Sao Paulo or to Rio and then had to go all the way north to Manaus, we actually did it a completely different way. We just went, Florida, Venezuela, Manaus, then down to Sao Paulo after that. So it worked out quite good. I don't think you can beat a World Cup in Brazil. The unfortunate thing is we didn't get out of the group and we were awful. Whereas Russia, everyone was thinking, oh, God, what's Russia going to be like? And it ended up being brilliant for the football reasons.
Yeah, I've got good reasons for not going to Brazil, but at the same time, I'm like, I so wish I'd have been able to go just to experience it. But I'll get there one day just to see what it's like. So, have you ever met any of the players on your journeys?
I was went to Kazakhstan for the game, and a friend of mine booked a hotel that the players were staying at. So we ended up with a lift with Frank Lampard and one or two of the others. But yeah, I've actually got an England cap.
Have you?
Yeah, but it's only an under-23 one. It was quite an old one. It's somebody I got to meet through my business, and he was sort of had a few money problems, shall we say. They didn't earn the money then that they do now. So he offered me the chance to buy his England cap from him. So obviously I took that opportunity. The guy used to play for Palace as well, although he wasn't very famous for playing for us. So yeah, I've actually got a proper England cap in my office, which is quite neat.
Amazing. I always wonder why players would let go of their England caps. But yeah, I guess sometimes money does come into it.
I did say to him, if he ever wanted it back, I'd sell it back to him for what I paid for it. So, but he's never come back to me and asked for it yet.
No.
I won't say his name because obviously he's saying that he was poverty stricken. Probably best I don't. I'll tell you later.
Going to Kazakhstan must have been great. Again, it's one of those places that I would have loved to have gone to, and I've heard stories about it. I ended up going to the second largest canyon in the world. That was miles and miles from where the game was played. I went there in a taxi with two England fans I'd met in the bar the night before. Keith, West Ham fan, I can't remember her name. I'm really sorry if you're listening to this. But yeah, we ended up going to this canyon. That was quite good. But we had to climb up a rock face to get into it in the first place. And the guide had a massive knife in his back pocket. I remember thinking, this isn't like the Grand Canyon at all. But we do tend to, when we do go to places, we do tend to sort of experience things like we went to Chernobyl, which was an amazing experience. I've been to Auschwitz. I went to Sachsenhausen when England played in Berlin, not the last time, the time before that. So we do tend to do some weird stuff as well. I wouldn't say it's weird. I think, obviously every England supporter has got their own way of celebrating an away game, be it going to see the sights like yourself there, or someone's going to go find like the local cuisine, or someone's going to go and find the nearest Irish bar. Everyone's got their own way of celebrating an England away day. And I think the main thing is that we all just like to travel and experience somewhere, don't we? And just follow our team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it filled a massive void in my life because I've always loved travelling, but never really had the opportunity to do it too much. When you've got a family, obviously you have to put them first. And I've been a massive football fan all my life, season ticket holder at Palace for donkey's years. The group of guys I'm with are brilliant. I mean, we don't just go there, find the nearest pub and get bladdered, because you could do that at home. So we do try to sort of ingratiate ourselves with the locals and do stuff that the locals would do. We were quite lucky in the year before the World Cup in Brazil. We went for the warm-up game in the Maracanã. And so we decided we were going to do all of our sightseeing then because it'd be far quieter than when the World Cup would be on. So we did Sugarloaf Mountain, Christ the Redeemer, Copacabana Beach, all of that stuff. And we went to a place called Foz de Iguaza. I don't know if you've heard of it at all, Russell.
No, go on, enlighten me.
It was in a James Bond film. It's basically on the border of Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil. And it's the most beautiful waterfalls you'll ever see in the world.
Right.
And, so we all got on a little cheap plane, went down there. We did it from the Brazilian side, the Argentinian side. We collared an Argentinian taxi driver who took us into his cousin's steak restaurant, had the most amazing Argentinian steak. Went into Paraguay, which the bit in Paraguay we went to was very, very rough. So I think the rules of going to a country is you need to leave the airport, have a beer, and go to the toilet. So we made sure we did all three. We didn't have an airport because we drove across. But the other two things we made sure we did in Paraguay, but we weren't there for very long.
I must admit, I don't count a country if I only touch down in the airport. So but go for a beer and the toilet. Yeah. I mean, there's other places, I guess, as well. You've been to like Moldova as well, have you?
Yeah, I've been quite lucky, really. I mean, I do keep a list of all of the places I've seen England play.
Right.
And so if we do play in Iceland, which I hope we do, that'll be the 40th country I've seen England play in. And virtually all of Europe we've done now.
Yeah.
We managed to wangle some tickets when we were in the Ukraine for the Holland-Denmark game in Kharkiv. And so a few of us went down there. It was kind of on the way from Kiev to Donetsk anyway. And we found a fan park. And in the middle of the fan park, we saw a guy with an England shirt on, which we thought was quite strange because I thought we were the only mental people doing this. Mm-hmm. So we went up there and it turned out he wasn't English anyway. He was Moldovan.
Right.
And he desperately wanted tickets for the England game against Ukraine, which was the one coming up. And I happened to have a spare for that ticket. So I said, I'll tell you what, we'll do a deal. I'll give you the ticket for the England-Ukraine. And when we play Moldova, you sort us all out accommodation. And a bit of a leap of faith because obviously he's having the ticket first. And we had to believe it. Turns out he was a lawyer and he was sort of really well connected in Chisinau. And he put us up this amazing accommodation, took us to the best places. We met the British consulate in Chisinau. So all these things we would never have done had it not been for the fact we'd actually decided to go to Holland against Denmark and saw a guy in England shirt. So.
Oh, amazing! It's just those little sort of leaps of faith and little links that you just tap into. I mean, football fans, we're all the same, aren't we? All want to sort of help each other out and fell on your feet there.
I tend to. I'm quite a lucky person, really.
And you went to, was it Trinidad and Tobago for that game? Did you go there?
Yeah, I went there with my son. Another quite a funny story, actually, because I was dating a girl at the time and I booked this really luxury villa 50 yards from the beach. But between booking it and going, we broke up. And I said, well, I'm still going. She said, well, I'm still going as well. So we ended up both going. So I went with my son. She went with her two daughters. Staying in the same place, barely saying two words to one another. I hired a car, she hired a car. We went off, me and my son went off and done our thing during the day. This is in Tobago, by the way. And she did her thing. And then we flew across. It was quite an interesting flight, actually, because Trinidad and Tobago are only something like 12 miles apart. So the flight was just incredible. It was like queuing up for a bus. You know, there was people, because it's not even going to a different country because it's the same country, no passport or anything. So it's basically you stand in the queue and then just board this plane and you go up and you go down, and it was something like, I don't know, 8 or 9 minutes in total, the flight.
No time to get the duty free out.
No, not at all. But the contrast between the two islands is quite stark. I mean, Tobago's beautiful. It's all ramshackle. You know, there's no tarmac roads. It's all beautiful beaches. And you go to Trinidad and it's like being in Brixham. You know, it's like high-rise buildings everywhere, proper roads. It's very, very rough. So we didn't stay in Trinidad very long, luckily, but we had a beautiful time in Tobago.
Lovely. Lovely. Yeah, another one of those ones that I remember watching on the telly, thinking, "Oh, that'd be nice to have gone there."
Yeah, there was no segregation at all in the ground, by the way. So basically, you got in the ground and you could sit wherever you want. So if anyone ever remembers watching the game, there wasn't the normal singing from the England fans because we were dispersed, all around the stadium.
Yeah.
But there was these guys going around with bottles of Red Stripe, sort of saying, "Hey, you want beer, anyone?" And you could drink your beer while watching the game, sat next to the, Trinidad locals, which was quite good.
Totally different contrast to what we're used to on a Wembley evening.
Yeah, so that was a real highlight. I liked. It was just a beautiful place to go, really.
Yeah.
Went to Qatar for the game against Brazil as well. Obviously, that it could be going back there in a few years if we qualify and if it's still on.
What did you make of Qatar?
Not a massive amount to do. Very noisy with the wailing from the mosques every sort of seemed to be every half an hour. I'm sure it wasn't. Very humid, even the time of the year we went, which I think it was October, November from memory. Very, very few places sold alcohol. Only the big hotels. One of my mates, Ricky, had gone out there a bit before I did, and he found a expat rugby club in Qatar, and they had the biggest array of choices of what we would call normal drinks, and they were a little bit cheaper than everywhere else. Even saying that, I think it was still £7 or £8 a pint. So he managed to smuggle us into the rugby club for drinking purposes. So we also did a 4x4 over the sand dunes.
Oh yeah.
Me and my mate, actually, Dave, we decided we were going to go to the beach, and bear in mind there's sand everywhere. And again, a bit like Venezuela, petrol's for free, really. So we got a taxi and said, "Can you take us to the nearest beach?" After we'd been in the taxi for 45 minutes, I thought we'd been abducted because I thought, well, it can't be that far away from a sandy beach. We're in, sand everywhere. Yeah. But he took us to this place, and the taxi ride was equivalent to about £5 or something. And there were swimming pools as well as the sea. But in the swimming pools, they were segregated men only and women only pools. So I think it's going to be a culture shock for a lot of people when they go out over there.
I mean, the chances are it will have changed a hell of a lot in the short space of time since you went.
Yeah, possibly. The one good thing, I think, if you speak to most of the England fans, the biggest challenge we have is transporting ourselves from one venue to another. And that's the one good thing about Qatar. I think I was watching a documentary on it the other day, and I think the furthest distance that two grounds are from one another are 45 minutes on the tube. So you can, settle yourself in an area, not have to move and go and see other random games if you want to. And that's something that's not really available to most other tournaments. That's the only positive I can think of right now to think about Qatar.
Yeah, it's going to be a strange one. We're just all assuming it will go ahead as planned. But yeah, it's going to be a strange one. I'm in two minds really about Qatar. We'll see. But back to England. Obviously this year has been knocked on the head or postponed until next year. What were your thoughts going forward for England?
Yeah, I think in some respects the tournament being cancelled has done us a bit of a favour insofar as certainly in the striking department we were looking very thin on the ground, weren't we? So give it another year, they'll be fitter. We've got a lot of good young players coming through. Another year under their belt, I think they would augur well for us. Obviously, disappointed as I am that we're not going. I don't know what they're going to do about the Europa Nations League either. Whether now that the Euros are going to be next year, what happens with that? So I'm watching for an announcement as to whether they're going to still have it that year or put it back another year. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all these unknowns at the moment that we just don't know. It's just a waiting game for all of us.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Being an England fan, as I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands of people listening to this, hopefully, that are in the same boat as me. It's kind of like some stranger I've never met does, the wheel of fortune and decides where I'm going to be travelling for the next 12 months. So the excitement around the draw is brilliant for us because we're thinking, I haven't been to this country, I haven't seen England play in that country. Really like to draw them.
Yeah.
Normally the disappointment or otherwise on the draw has got nothing to do with the standard of opposition, but far more to do with the countries that we were going to be visiting, in the qualification period.
Oh yeah, I love a draw, especially when you can pick out those countries that we've got the potential to go to, and everyone obviously for the Nations League was like, yeah, Iceland, I would love to go to Iceland, and then when it came out was everyone was excited. Similar to Kosovo as well for for the game last year. I was like, yeah, love to go to Kosovo. I'd love that to come out. And you just think it won't. I'll end up going to, I don't know, Lithuania again. And when it came out, it's like, right, bang on that.
And what a trip that was.
Wasn't it?
We flew into Albania. We went to Albania as well for a previous game, and that would have been the Montenegro game, I guess. Anyway, so we'd gone to Albania for that game and hired a minibus to go to the ground, and really liked Albania. So we decided we were going to do Albania for Kosovo as well, and we actually got to see the under-21s in Albania the day before the game, or the day before we travelled at least to Kosovo. So we got a random under-21 game in, and actually got the tickets for free as well, which was quite handy.
Oh, nice one. Why not?
They're only €1 each, but there were people handing them out outside the ground. So we'll have some of that and save €1. But yeah, Kosovo, the people, I mean, I'm sure everyone said the same. They couldn't have been friendlier. I mean, they were giving us free food and free drinks, and it was just incredible how, a country in Europe was so welcoming to the English fans, which is normally complete opposite in most of the places we go to. They go, oh my God, the England fans are in town, batten down the hatches sort of thing. But the Kosovans could not have been more friendly if they tried.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. It was a bit of a culture shock to us, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, well, mate, and look after yourself, and hopefully we can catch up and say hello at some stage.
Yeah, brilliant. Really, real pleasure talking to you, mate. Yeah, good luck in the quiz if they do it again.
Yes, no, likewise. Thank you very much.
Okay, Russell. Really good speaking to you, mate.
Thank you to Howard there for his time and stories of what it's like to follow England, both home and away. And I did mention the Travel Club at the beginning of the episode. I'm not quite sure if you can, in these current times, if you can still join up, but give them a quick Google, perhaps you can, and join in the quiz in these travelless days. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, you can follow the show on Twitter at 3 Lions Podcast. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search 3 Lions Podcast. And in the meantime, continue to stay safe, look after yourself and others, and I'll be back with another episode very soon. In fact, I think I'll drop one where I chat with a former England international. So please do stay subscribed. So until then, cheers.